The biggest problem, most people, why they're not able to function cognitively, aka which is what? Focus, right? They're able to focus or have the energy they want is they're not having enough sleep, right? And one of the biggest reasons they don't, right, is they don't have some type of specific nighttime ritual.
Hey, this is Blake Sloan. I've been selling real estate over 14 years. Our team of highly trained professionals, along with our unmatched marketing, has sold thousands of homes here in the Myrtle Beach area, and this is how we do it.
This is one thing we went through. I thought it was just important. I think it's so basic. A lot of people screw it up. And so one of the biggest things you got to make sure that people realize, you have these things called, everyone knows about. There's two things. You have AM. I want you to call it PR. An AM BR. A PM PR. And a PM BR. So AM is going to be what? Yep, which would be called what? What's PR stand for, you think? No?
Personal ritual.
Personal routine. Right? So for me, that's getting up, doing my stack, and going to the gym, right? Same time. You guys notice if I post a video into the group, it's usually within like 2 or 3 minutes the same exact time, right? Because I have this personal ritual that does what? It's designed to get me into power overall with that, which is easy to do, right? Now, here's the crazy part. What I learned and what I was just going through, and the whole reason I'm teaching about this, what I found is, and also have an AM, what do you think BR stands for? Business ritual, right? Or business routine. So I have my personal ritual, or my personal routine, and my business routine. My business routine will be what? Planning my day, my schedule, like fine-tune my calendar. And for us, it's going to be the huddle, right? The huddle is what? It's what you get clear to go in the huddle. Does that make sense? And so that's a key part of that. If you look at the PM, right, the first thing's going to be your business ritual, right, our business routine, which is planning for the next day, which we talked about that a few weeks ago. You guys remember that? We talked about, hey, here's what I have to have done tomorrow. Here's my top 3 things. Here's what I got to make sure part of my to-dos for the next day, right? And then the other part is my personal routine. They leave it to chance. And so one of the biggest ahas in going through this is that for most people, your AM personal routine, if you have one, doesn't mean anything if you don't have a PM personal routine the night before. Why? You wake up tired. You wake up not having the tools and really the capacity that you need from a mindset standpoint, which is interesting, right? I debated teaching on this, but I'm going to get to the part I'm talking about that really is a big aha for me. So the key part is you got to make sure you have that part. And so here's the crazy part. If my evening routine is off, my morning routine doesn't matter, which is so true, right? And so one of the biggest things that you got to realize is that the overall piece of that is the stress that we all carry. And so I'm stressed out at night, stressed out in the morning, right? One of the biggest things that we don't realize, there's this thing called cortisol. Anybody know what cortisol means? What cortisol is? It's a stress hormone. What does that do?
Makes you not really be able to sleep, keeps high anxiety.
Yeah, so it's basically the fight or flight, right? So there's different ways for the most humans in the morning between 7 and 8 o'clock, they get a spike of cortisol, right? That's the stress hormone. That's good. That's designed to get you to do what? Get going. That's that naturalized thing, and you have a cortisol spike. My doctor calls it a bell curve. We tracked my cortisol for a while. It's spit in this tube like 6 times a day for 3 days. And basically, they would take my saliva and test it, and the saliva would show what? My cortisol levels and what they were. And how it's supposed to do is like this through each person's day, right? And so what was happening with me is mine was flat, and it would be high at night, which would mean what? I couldn't sleep at night, and so I was tired in the daytime. I was the exact opposite, right? And so my hormones were screwed up, and so we fixed that. And so there's a big aha to teach is that most people's cortisol level is really up in a way because what?
No routine.
You have no sleep routine. So your body doesn't know when to release the stress hormones and when not to release stress hormones, which is why you're always tired all the time. And so one of the biggest ahas, and that's why I want to teach this, is that the key part here, and I have it in my notes, is that your biggest hack for anyone to do so, and to make sure you have this, and I have the actual data from the guy, is that you want to make sure you have a sleep and wake routine that's 30 to 45 minutes on the same day. The same time each day. So 30 to 45 minutes on each end. So your window never changes. So at the end of the night, my window, 30 to 45 minutes, doesn't change. Why? Because my body needs to be on this routine. I'll tell you the exact scientific thing here in a second. So my wake-up time, that's the easiest part, 30 to 45 minutes. So, for example, right, mine's usually between 5:15, 5:30 every morning, right, even naturally in that scenario. And so what happens is that piece there, and so my body now, and we corrected the cortisol issues I had through, I took some natural adaptogens, we tested, it got it corrected, so it fixed it that way, which is natural, just supplements, but also the key part was for me to do what? Fix my sleep routine. And so the crazy part of this, and they have the word for it in that scenario, and I'll pull it up right here. The word is, it starts with the C, I have it, it's super important. It's called your circadian rhythm, that's it. Yeah, so circadian rhythm, tell us about that, Brandon.
It's like a heartbeat. It's the way that your body goes in and out of like sleep patterns.
Yeah, it's really good. So your circadian rhythm, which basically is what tells your body to release certain stress hormones at certain times, which also come from your pineal gland. And so what's happening for most people, your body's releasing the wrong stress hormones at the wrong time, which is why you always feel like you're tired all the time. But the real reason is you don't have a very specific schedule or routine that keeps your body on that. And so the crazier part is, even though you're having a lot more sleep in some cases, doesn't mean it's quality sleep. Does that make sense? And so if you have the right circadian rhythm, you can have less sleep, but it's more effective because your body's on the routine. Why? Because the actual deep sleep is involved in that, and it's aligned with your circadian rhythm. And so that's the key part. And so what we get to, and I'll get to in a second, what most people, and this is the reason I'll teach this, so most of y'all have a sleep schedule because you have no nighttime routine, right? Your nighttime routine is driven by what's on Netflix or what you're watching or what you have going on in that scenario. And so then what happens is I feel tired, so then what do we do?
Go back to sleep.
No? Well, yeah, they do that too, unfortunately, right? That's why it's so hard for people to make it to a 9 o'clock huddle, I guess. But the reality is, what do the most people do after they get here?
Kind of like zombie, not high focus.
And then they do what? Yeah, that too. But if they stay, what do? You all do it. We most of all do it. I do it too. We load up on caffeine, external sources, right? And so then we load up on caffeine to make it through, right? And so we master it for a little bit, so then we have a super high, then we have another crash, then what do? Take some more caffeine, have another crash, and all of a sudden, a lot of times we get to this part here, we're taking a lot of caffeine too late in the day. And so one of the biggest ahas for me in taking this, learning this, is that caffeine has this thing called a half-life. I know what that is?
It's a neuro blocker, isn't it?
In a way, it's where you don't feel the actual rush or the feel from the caffeine, but the caffeine's still running through your nervous system. And so for many people, a half-life of caffeine is 7 to 8 hours. So when you take caffeine at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you don't feel that rush. You feel like you crash, but then what happens? Right? And so the reality is, the key part here is that a lot of times you can't sleep because you don't think it's the actual caffeine, but what's going on in the background is the half-life of the caffeine is still running through your nervous system, which is why you can't fall asleep. And then what do the next day? Perpetuate the cycle over and over and over and over and over again. And you never get to a place where you feel like you're fully there. And there's 3 main things I think that are part of that. And what drives that in terms of enough sleep is 3 main things. Number 1 is energy, vitality, and cognitive function. So you ever been like where you're here but you're not really here? Right, you're here but you're not focused. And no matter how hard you try, you just can't focus and laser in. A lot of that comes with lack of sleep. Specifically, lack of quality sleep. And that's super important. But one of the things that really was my big aha, which is why I want to teach this for you guys, and there's a lot of people in here that don't have the rhythm. And so the same cycle, though, I don't feel terrible. I went to the gym this morning, had the same exact wake-up time, all those things. Why? Because in my big aha, what I want to teach this is that my body's on a very, very, very good what? Rhythm. Right? My circadian rhythm is very, very well in tune. And a lot of us are just screwing up a very, very simple piece here. And so it's just a simple hack for us to be able to make sure that we're on it. And so the key part I mentioned I want to take away in the way from the standpoint is that regular sleep lets you get away with less sleep. Why? Because your body is more chemically regulated. I'll say it again. Regular sleep lets you get away with less sleep because your body is more chemically regulated, which is super important, right? And so when you come in, you're in a deprived state looking for external sources of energy, right? You're constantly seeking the outside caffeine, And so what's happening is you're really kind of screwing up, and that's the other key part there is you're not ever getting to that quality sleep that actually matters. And like we talked about, is circadian rhythm, right? It's the built-in clock in your body, and it's more important than total duration of sleep anyone has. They talked also that females typically need 40 minutes more per day of sleep because of the body cycle, things that it has. And so it's one of those things that is important to kind of look at in that scenario. But the key part is the key lesson, the most important part is I want you guys to have a target where no matter what, your bedtime routine is within the same window of 30, 45 minutes, and your wake-up routine is in the same window of 30, 45 minutes. Now, it doesn't mean you wake up and kids and whatever else it is, right, which is very difficult. But overall, that's the super, super big hack there for everyone to make sure you're looking at in that part. Now, how do you help make sure you do that? Right? Is first of all, it takes a routine. So what most people's excuse is, what do you think most people's excuse is? Can't fall asleep. Well, that's because you slept so friggin' late in the morning the day before. Right? Like I mentioned, up at 5 or 5:30, you have no problem going to sleep at all. And so sometimes what you're going to have to do is pay the piper ahead of time. Right? Be tired for 1 day or 2 days to get the body right and get back on the rhythm in that scenario. Which is very, very important for us to look at. Other way, they talk about this one thing the health guy was talking about, that was teaching him, has a big nutrition company, is that no phone or TV within a half hour going to sleep. That's a big struggle for a lot of people. I don't have that problem. I can be on my phone and fall asleep like on the dot every time. But one of the things that really also helps, I've done a lot, and I continue to do in many cases, is reading, right? I do 15 minutes before the bed, because then what happens when you read a lot of times? You get tired, right? You get super tired. So it's a natural way to help your body get tired to fall asleep. And that's why I have like a bazillion books next to my bed that I always pick up, in that scenario if I'm able to do so, or if I need to fall asleep in that piece there. Other thing that helps, that's interesting that and they mentioned there is try to get sunlight or bright light from 15 to 30 minutes a day before 10 a.m., which helps your body do what? Regulate, right? It regulates chemically. Why? Because of the way that our ancestors came through. We talked about in most cases previously, what humans did was what? Woke up when? Sunrise, right? And so they'd wake up at sunrise. They'd end by sundown or candlelight at the end, so it wasn't what's going on now. Now we're so overstimulated by what? With social media, with our telephones, with bright lights. They call it blue lights, right? The blue light coming from the phone or also the TV, which is stimulating your mind too much. And what's happening is people have trouble going to sleep in that scenario. But that's something that's very, very valuable to look at in that piece of it. One thing that they recommend, I don't have to do this, but they wear blue light blockers, right? Ideally 1 hour before going to sleep, which is important. One thing also recommended, I've had a lot of friends talk about this, is the hatch alarm. You guys seen that? It's called a hatch alarm. It's like $100, I think. But what it does is it takes if you're up too early, like if you're up before the sun, it takes this light and it trains like a light pink, and then it gets like a sunrise, and it makes like a sunrise next to your bed. So you feel that light coming, so you slowly wake up versus being jarred awake by some crazy, super scary alarm that wakes you up. That makes sense? So that's very, very important to do as well. Other things that help too, obviously mentioned white noise. We use that with Luke with a noise machine. Sleep with cold room temperature. I do that. Mine's on like 67 usually. Weighted blanket. And the key one here, which is a big one that people screw up on, is last meal should be 3 hours prior to sleep time. 3 hours prior to sleep time. I don't do that necessarily because we have so much with the baby, but I try to make sure, I eat by 7 and I sleep by like 10 at the latest. Try to be asleep by 9:30 overall, right? But I'm very committed to it and very disciplined to it. And it really helps benefit that. And I was in a place where I was really, really bad physically, where my adrenal glands were just totally shot from taking Adderall for so long. We had to basically rebuild them through supplements and sleep and things like that. But I was just a big aha in thinking about, man, there's a lot of people in here that their schedule is up. And the key part is you can be in control of it. With kids as well, right? Because you control what time the kids go to bed in most cases, right? Don't let them be the terrorists of the house, right? So I think many of us tend to fall victim to that. And that's something, Brandon, you've done very well too, right? With bedtime and stuff. Other piece they talked about that everybody screws up on a lot, which I thought was important, is hydration, right? Hydration is a key part. So what happens is, and the reason you feel so tired is basically because your body's dehydrated. And so what we tend to do is add more caffeine and add more caffeine, more coffee, what does that do? Dehydrates you more, which is even crazier. And so that comes from a cognitive standpoint and focus. So you ever felt really wired but you can't focus? Many times that's because you're in that place where you're basically dehydrated. So here's a key part. Water's so easy to do. It's very easy to what? Not to do. And so it's just one of those things that we got to make sure that we're doing that overall. And the key numbers here they gave, which is very, very easy to look at, is that you should do 1/2 your body weight in ounces per day. If you work out, you add 15 ounces to that. So 1/2 your body weight in ounces per day, plus 15 if you worked out. So me, I about 100 and 115 ounces a day, right? Which is, so an average bottle is what? 16. So that's a lot, right? That's 5, 6. 28? 128. Yeah, so basically a gallon a day, to do. And so that's the key part there. From what, though? From an energy standpoint, that's the crazy part, is that water has such a crucial role in your energy, cognitive function, right, overall to do. But most people are lacking energy because they lack hydration. And here's the crazier part. You have cravings. This is a big aha, too, from that, is that many times the cravings you're having because your body is dehydrated, your body's craving one or two things, sugar or salt. And so the reason you go to like the Tostito chip and the things that you eat is because your body's craving that salt, which is electrolytes, to help put more water into the tissues. And so you end up eating and snacking that doesn't really help you because you're basically your body's searching for more water, more electrolytes to bring that. So when you crave the sugar or you crave the salt, that's your body wanting more water many times. And that's what we end up doing, is we end up filling that with snacks instead that's just extra calories. So it's a big aha for me to do in that scenario. And so that's a key part. And so what we talked about, what they mentioned there, is that many times you're craving that. What your body is actually craving is electrolytes that it's needing. And so that's another big thing there too. What also many people do is they drink 16 ounces first thing in the morning with the scoop or half scoop of electrolytes. And you can get that. You won't get supplements if you do that from that scenario. That's not Gatorade. That's electrolytes that really help you pour powder into the water. When I was in St. John a while back, one of the guys there is a doctor who runs a bunch of clinics, and that's everything he would do every morning, which is interesting. And he's super healthy, super fit, and he would drink a bottle of water with electrolytes every morning. And it was crazy. This class did the same exact thing. So that's the key part there. If you do any snacks throughout the day, right, for that, make sure it's some type of protein, which helps, right? Keeps you from doing a lot of carbs. That really doesn't matter, or processed foods that fills it out. But here's the crazy part we talked about in the call, is that you don't recognize until you start accurately hydrating that that's what the main problem was. It's not something you feel instantly, right? I don't drink a bottle of water and feel energetic, but once I get the hydration corrected and I start doing what my body craves a day, then guess what happens? You start feeling more energetic, you start feeling more clear of the mind, you start having less stress, you start feeling much better because I'm actually hydrating to the point my body needs to be at. You know when you should be sleeping, you know what you should be doing, but guess what? We don't do it because we fall victim to happenstance and what happens to us. And so that was just a big aha that I thought was important for us from a productivity standpoint. It's very, very simple. It's so simple that many times we just overlook it, but it was a great reminder, especially if I want to do what? When I have energy and vitality and how I operate from a business standpoint. If I walk in my clients, right, I want my energy and my physicality to say what? I'm a force to be reckoned with, right? And they feel that energy and they feel that piece of me that allows me to portray that certainty that they take in from a business standpoint, which is very, very important, right? When you walk in the room, you command that energy based on what? Your energetic energy and also your vitality that you have from a human standpoint, which is very, very important in that scenario. And here's the key part: how you look and how you feel translate your perception from your clients, which is super important.